Welcome back to The Explainer. Right now, if you look at the news, international headlines are just buzzing with trade wars and tariffs. But today, we're going to look at how a massive geopolitical waste crisis is actually being solved by, of all things, a smartphone-powered digital refinery. It is a fascinating look at how a seemingly mundane industry, garbage and scrap wood, is suddenly sitting right at the intersection of international trade laws and cutting-edge artificial intelligence. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We'll be moving through 6 parts: the Great Lakes trash war, Ontario's looming capacity cliff, the 905 wood digital refinery, the Agenic Edge pipeline, the digital product passport, and finally, securing the circular bioeconomy. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the Great Lakes trash war, a border under pressure. To really wrap your head around the scale of this problem, you have to look at the physical reality of the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor. In fiscal year 2024 alone, Michigan imported 3.46 million tons of solid waste strictly from the Canadian province of Ontario. Just picture that for a second. A continuous, never-ending convoy of diesel transport trucks loaded to the brim with municipal solid waste, driving down the highway, idling at the crossing, and emptying their contents right into Michigan soil. And this brilliantly illustrates the dependency we're talking about. Nearly 15%, 14.35% to be exact, of all the waste buried in Michigan comes directly from Canada. Driven by pure economic arbitrage, basically because of significantly cheaper landfill rates, Michigan has historically acted as this massive dumping ground for Ontario. But overnight, that relationship has become deeply, deeply vulnerable. Look at the board here. You've got supply chain catalysts hitting from literally every direction, threatening to close this massive trade corridor. In Washington, the looming USMCA Sunset Review threatens a brutal 40% transshipment penalty. You've got proposed Trump tariffs utilizing Section 112 trade action to specifically tax municipal solid waste. Over at the state level, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer proposed a $5 per ton tipping fee. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but that is a 1,288% hike over their historical 36-cent rate. And in response to these cross-border pressures, you have Ontario Premier Doug Ford introducing Bill 5 to force domestic landfill expansions, completely overriding local opposition. So we can neutrally map all of these highly charged political policies as severe economic variables that are turning transboundary waste management into a highly volatile geopolitical issue. Which leads us directly to part 2, Ontario's looming capacity cliff, and that scary 2034 deadline. So the crucial point here is that if the U.S. border gets snarled up with these tariffs or fees, Ontario hits an absolute physical wall. They will completely run out of domestic landfill space by 2034. Losing that Michigan disposal route means almost 3.5 million tons of garbage annually suddenly has nowhere to go, instantly shaving years off the province's landfill lifespan. It's a terrifying domestic crisis. Let's look at the solution in part 3. The 905 wood digital refinery, the Sentient Bridge. This brings us to the technological resolution. When faced with this crisis, 905 Wood isn't acting as a traditional logistics company hauling trash. They built a completely new software architecture. See, the old linear haul and dump model just moves chaotic waste to landfills, where you pay heavy levies, upwards of $60 a ton. But the digital refinery captures that material, treats it as ore, and transforms a physical liability into a verifiable biocarbon manufacturing feedstock. They act as this translation layer. Their documentation actually calls it the Sentient Bridge between chaotic construction waste and the high purity requirements of the biocarbon market. Basically, they are bridging the strict quality gap required by industrial off-takers, like Char Technologies and the Puro.Earth document libraries, by ensuring these feedstocks arrive with less than 1% contamination and under 10% moisture. Moving to part 4, the Agenic Edge pipeline, or as I like to think of it, AI in the mud. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually guarantee that kind of purity at a freezing, muddy demolition site? Well, here is the technical blueprint. They're actually using next-generation consumer silicon, specifically the Google Pixel 11 Pro and 10 Pro running Android 17 and 16 with AI Core. Powering this whole thing is the custom 3nm Tensor G5 chipset, operating the Light RT AI stack for localized edge processing. It is specifically prioritized for thermal stability, meaning it's rated to run continuous computer vision scans in extreme industrial environments without missing a beat. And to top it off, they use Vertex ML metadata, known as the time machine, to freeze the exact AI model version and GPS state at the precise millisecond of classification. This perfectly illustrates their audio overrides visual protocol, which proves that even if the wood looks clean, the AI acts as a strict compliance gate. So step 1, the visual scan classifies the load as clean wood. But cameras can't see everything, right? Like chemical treatments. So in step 2, the acoustic engine is listening to the driver's voice note. If it hears a trigger word like demolition or painted, it completely overrides the visual data and triggers step 3, a mandatory XRF scan to hunt for invisible heavy metals like arsenic and chromium. Okay, part 5, the digital product passport, defeating the transshipment trap. Because capturing the data out there in the mud is one thing, but translating it into actual legal protection against international trade laws, that is the real SaaS product here. Remember those geopolitical tensions we talked about earlier? Well, to bypass the USMCA transshipment trap, which threatens a severe 40% financial penalty if U.S. customs auditors even suspect your Canadian wood is mixed with foreign plastics, 905 Wood leverages its digital twin data trail. They use it to mathematically and legally prove the material is a wholly obtained domestic resource. They engineer this proof into a totally pragmatic 9-point certificate of origin. They deliberately went with what they call a hostile UI/UX approach. I love this. It means it's stripped down and intentionally basic, specifically designed for industrial legibility. They are constraining massive cloud architecture into a high-contrast, strictly black and white PDF. It outputs certifier details, producer info, the exact HS tariff classification down to 6 digits, and that immutable GPS and AI model data. It's built rugged enough to survive a legacy industrial fax machine and instantly satisfy customs and border protection auditors. And finally, part 6, securing the circular bioeconomy, dust into data. Ultimately, what you need to take away from this is that 905 Wood's true value isn't the physical wood itself. They are literally turning dust into data. Because of this atomic level certainty, they generate globally recognized carbon removal certificates, or CARCs, for the Puro BioEarth biocarbon market. And get this, a single verified load is valued at roughly $2,633. They take a pile of sawdust that used to be a tax liability and transform it into a highly traceable, tradable environmental asset. By operationalizing this Google Pixel tech stack, 905 Wood's value shifts entirely to the DMRV, the digital measurement, reporting, and verification of the provenance data. The data itself is the service, securing Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. And this unlocks what's known as Craft 4.0, allowing high-resolution 3D scanning and robotics to upcycle these verified scraps into luxury furniture, instead of just burning them as fuel or dumping them as landfill ash. It completely changes how we look at industrial supply chains. I mean, think about it. If you can use an AI-powered smartphone to mathematically validate a scrap of demolition debris, defeat international tariffs, and mint it into a thousands of dollars digital asset, it leaves us with one massive question. What else are we currently classifying as waste that is actually just misplaced data sitting in our dumpsters waiting to be digitized?